since I was a boy. The desire to be a servant had been hammered into my skull.
A servant and two masters. The White Tiger, out on Netflix this month, is a dark and comedic take on India's class divide and one man's fight to break out of the life of servitude. Based on the Booker Prize-winning novel of the same name, it's been adapted by Ramin Bahrani, starring Priyanka Chopra-Jonas and Adarsh Gourav.
Sir, you should represent India in the Olympics!
Well, I read the book about a decade ago, and it had a profound impact on me when it had come out in 2008. There was a lot of chatter around the book in the literary circles. So just a couple of years ago, I was on Twitter, as I am every morning, and I was reading news, and I saw in the trade magazines that this book was being adapted by Netflix by Ramin, who actually the book was dedicated to. So I made my agents call the producers. I offered my services. I chased after Ramin. I met him 3 times in multiple countries and multiple cities.
I want to be a driver for your son.
Hey, how much rope?
Hey, don't do that.
Hey, driver!
I'm Pinky. Nice to meet you.
Balram, have you ever seen a computer?
We had many of them in the village with the goats.
The goats are pretty advanced to use computer.
Okay, now you're being a jerk.
How important is it for you that such a well-known and socially engaged actress wanted to be part of the movie?
Yeah, it was great. She reached out. She loved the novel. She is, as you said, trying to produce and is producing in India and in the West, socially engaging films with diverse voices. And we met, and she was just amazing. She's so well-spoken, so intelligent, passionate, funny, down to earth, humble, and we did an audition. She was willing to do that, which is rare for a movie star. I filmed it alone with just me and her and an iPhone. I was reading Balram's part, and she was playing Pinky, and she blew me away immediately. Her instincts were so spot on, and she brought so much energy to the role. It was having her and also Rajkumar Rao, who's a huge movie star in India, playing Ashok. Both of them were so generous, and they welcomed Adarsh, the lead actor, who was a relative newcomer. He had never been a lead in a movie. They welcomed him and just really made him feel comfortable. The 3 of them really got along, and I think you can feel it in the movie.
I, Balram Halwai, I drove the car. I was alone in the car. They made me sign that confession.
Why would you kick him? Why would you hit him like that?
You're my driver!
And Adarsh, I have to ask you, what was it like appearing in a film with such an enormous star as Priyanka?
It was very inspiring. I just feel that it was a huge opportunity for somebody like me who hadn't been part of anything so huge, and I was just inspired and in awe of Priyanka, of Raj, of Ramin, of everybody that I was getting to work with. And I had 3 months to prepare for the character, so I just tried to make the best use of it and have fun on set.
Priyanka, you're an executive producer and you star in the film as Pinky, and you do have some similarities with your character in that you were born in India. You spent part of your education in the United States, then you came back to India, and then you went back to the United States. What attracted you to the part of Pinky?
Well, I think Pinky in the novel was very different than Pinky in the movie. Pinky in the novel was a little bit more from Balram's perspective of, his voyeuristic version of who she was. Whereas in the movie, Balram and Pinky have a very peculiar relationship, and she, relates to him, and she implores him to sort of find his own self and not be caught up in the circle of service, because she did that. Her birth dictated that, her parents worked in a bodega and she was going to have a particular life, but she pulled herself out of it. Now, she was being very kind in saying that and relating to him, but it's also sort of an ignorant thing to do, which I've seen a lot of the world that doesn't understand the complexities of having no choice does to someone. when you're born somewhere, what that dictates. And that's a really complex thing. And Pinky didn't understand it. And I love to lean into that.
Do you know what my parents do in America? They run this shitty little bodega in Jackson Heights, selling beer, pan, and porn. I used to do my homework in the basement. One night I saw my mom being held at gunpoint, and she still finished working the entire night. I got out, Balram. What is it that you want to do?
The author Aravinda Diga said your film Man Pushcart from 2005 inspired him to write it. He dedicated the novel to you. Tell us about your creative relationship with the author and what interests you about this mix of art and social engagement.
Aravinda Diga and I have been friends for over 25 years. We became friends in the mid to late 90s at Columbia University. When we were undergraduates, there was a gang of us, Iranians, Indians, Afghans, Syrians, Lebanese, that found one another. And Arvind and I clicked because we dreamed to be one day quote artists, and he wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a filmmaker. And, we've been having a dialogue since then. My work and his work, they're different. I think he's the brilliant one and the funny one, which I tried to take for this film. And maybe we share some things in terms of wanting to tell stories about underdogs or the unseen characters, the underclass, and how forces of politics and economic can really lead to tough journeys for certain characters. And how do you tell that in an entertaining way?
I was trapped. And don't believe for a second there's $1 million game show you can win to get out of it.
You're my driver!
I'm just one who has woken up while the rest of you are still sleeping. I would have to become the creature that gets born only once every generation.
The white tiger.
That's what I call myself these days.
Adarsh, you play the main character, Balaram. The film follows his rise from poor villager to successful entrepreneur in modern India. What does the film say, do you think, about the impact of globalization on the lower castes in India?
Well, the film is based on a book that was written at the turn of the 21st century. And it was based on what Aravinda Diga observed at the point in time when the book was written. And it's been a long time since the book was written until today. Like, it's almost been 20 years. And within these 20 years, India has made a lot of progress. Things have changed dramatically in our country. And the book is also, it's set in India. The story is Indian, but the themes are very universal. The disparity that you see in India is not just restricted to India. It's, you see it in America, you see in the developed part of the world as well. So, of course, globalization has made a positive change throughout the world, and as well as India. You see a rising middle class now, and Ashok also has a dialogue in the film where he talks about the middle class, and you only see a growth in that middle class now in India, with people with more purchasing power and people with more education, and women are getting empowered, and things are changing for the better.
My master, he's a good man.
A good man. He's a rich man.
Here in India, there are only two kinds of people. Those with big bellies and those with small bellies.
And the book and film are set in the near past. Why is this moment in time significant, do you think?
The book was published in 2008. It was probably finished closer to 2006, 2007. It was at a time when the whole world was looking at India and China as the next booming economies. India was on a high, and try to capture that spirit, that kind of confidence, that bursting energy India had at that moment. And also, in a very funny and ironic and sarcastic way, Balram is commenting, he's writing an email to Wen Jiabao, the premier of China. That's how the book is framed and how the film is framed. And it, he's talking about how the Western world and the white people are feeling a bit insecure, that the global superpowers are no longer in the West, but they're in India and in the Far East in China. And I thought that was very prescient from Arvind and, very subversive.
Tell us about your initial trip to India.
I went for a couple of months there, and before I left, I remember Arvind gave me a very good piece of advice. He said, try to get out of the chauffeured air-conditioned car and walk by foot. Try to travel the way that Balram would have as a servant, by foot, by bus. Try to experience the locations that way. And that was really helpful to do it like that. I remember trying to talk to as many drivers as I could. You would meet them in the parking lot of Connaught Place in Delhi, a shopping center area, and you would just start talking to them. Or you would go to the luxury towers on a location scout to look for Ashok, the master's a luxury apartment complex, and immediately go to the garage and try and talk with drivers down there. You know, the other part was assembling the crew. My crew was 99% Indian to make sure things were authentic and real.
I want to break free. I want to break free.
They had plans. I had plans too.
The book really moved me because of two reasons. One, it's such a universal story. It's the story of the underdog. It's the story of someone who does not have what other people do. The privilege of being, you know, the story divides the haves and the have-nots, and a huge population around the world actually lives in those conditions. And we as privileged society have become desensitized to it. So I love that Arvind created a novel which causes self-reflection of such a difficult topic. And he used the class divide as an amazing story to tell what Balram's ambition was. So that really moved me. And second, that it was a South Asian story. And I really feel that, you know, in Hollywood, considering that South Asians are 1/5 of the world's population, you don't see 1/5 of global entertainment in English language being South Asian stories. So I really want to be at the helm of, you know, telling South Asian stories in global entertainment.
Okay, thank you so much. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you so much, Eve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a century of the brown man and the yellow man, and God save everybody else.
فاش تسوي شي وتشوف اسنانك عقب داخله تحط ايدك شي كلهن واضحات يطلع واضح يطلع فيديو جميل.
Sold at the click of a button, wild animals captured in Africa are highly prized by the mega-rich of the Persian Gulf. It's a booming market and a disaster for biodiversity. Even if the animals survive transportation, once domesticated, they can never return to the wild.
He's very kind of skittish and scared of any loud noise. It just startles him. So those are kind of the main issues. So you see that any noise, and it's just. So I think a lot of it is the mental trauma that he's been through as well.
From Somaliland to the Emirates, we look behind the scenes at trafficking on a major scale. Don't miss Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.